Let us proceed with penile lesions. So again, WHO 2016, primary and secondary. Always remember secondary, okay? But in this discussion, we are going to talk only primary. Epithelial, melanocytic, mesenchymal, lymphoma. In the epithelial, penile intraepithelial lesions and malignant lesions. HPV and non-HPV. Very, very important division in WHO 2016 for both precursor and malignant epithelial lesions. In the precursor lesion, HPV associated is warty or basaloid penile intraepithelial neoplasm, whereas when there is no HPV, we call it differentiated or Paget disease. In the HPV related malignant, the subtypes are basaloid warty, basaloid papillary, clear cell, lymphoepithelioma-like, and others. In the non-HPV, squamous cell carcinoma usual, pseudohyperplastic squamous cell carcinoma, pseudoglandular squamous cell carcinoma, verrucous squamous cell carcinoma, carcinoma of the cuniculum, papillary squamous cell carcinoma (MOS), adenosquamous carcinoma, sarcomatoid carcinoma, and mixed carcinomas. Please remember the verrucous carcinoma comes under non-HPV, whereas the verruca vulgaris come under HPV. They are not related. The verrucous carcinoma, you never see the coilocytes. I will show you the pictures. Mesenchymal, benign and malignant. So let us go to case 6. This is like out of portion. This is not exactly a penile tumor condition that is comes in WHO 2016, but I found it is a very interesting lesion in the penile area. This is a very well demarcated pink area in the dermis, okay, and it is pink and it is circumscribed, and the penile foreskin is heavily pigmented and it is thrown into folds. It is maintained, whereas the lesion is here. When you go to high power, this have a lot of histiocytic and lymphocytic appearance as in malakoplakia or Rosai-Dorfman disease. And when you go to high power again, the cells are having more abundant eosinophilic cytoplasm with the peripherally pushed nuclei, but nuclei are not that much pleomorphic. It is a lymphoplasmocytic lesion. Here they are having a glassy cytoplasm, and the nucleus is pushed to the periphery, no mitosis. And it's a heterogeneous population of histiocytes and lymphocytes. And whenever you see heterogeneous proliferation, think of non-neoplastic conditions first. And as I told you, look for Michaelis-Guttman bodies. I don't see them. And look for emperipolysis. I don't see them. So what is this diagnosis? This is a condition known as reticulohistiocytoma. It's like a fibrous histiocytoma. It's a variant where it shows abundant large pink cells, histiocytes admixed with the lymphocytes. And interestingly, these are ALK protein positive. Okay. In the exam, they may ask you, what are the ALK protein positive? Don't forget anaplastic lymphoma, because that's where it started. Okay, anaplastic lymphoma kinase. So number 1 is anaplastic lymphoma. Number 2 is inflammatory myofibroblastic tumor. Number 3 is non-squamous cell carcinoma of the lung. And number 4 is benign reticulohistiocytoma. These are all the 4 for the time being. Reticulohistiocytoma. Moving on to the second case. Again, this history of phimosis. You can see the nice foreskin here and see the abnormal area here. See the power of seeing the slide in the gross eye. You don't have to worry about these areas. The pathology is here. So you can focus directly into this area. When you focus in this area, the top is blue and the bottom is pink. Inflammatory conditions involving the top and the sclerosing condition involving the bottom. And this is nothing but simple case of balanitis xerotica obliterans. Mainly I showed this case to show the power of seeing the slide grossly with the naked eye before putting it under the microscope. So going to case number 8, again you can see the lesion very nicely here. Grossly you can see the verrucous lesion, okay, whether it is carcinoma or only verruca vulgaris or verruca, we have to see it under the microscope. Here you can see the normal foreskin in these areas, and these are all the 2 areas where there is hyperplastic squamous epithelium, and you can see the church spirals, and it looks like well circumscribed in this low power, okay, no pushing borders in the low power. But let us see it in the high power. So you can see the hyper and parakeratosis, church spiral like appearance, and you can see even in this low power you can see the coilocytes, okay, see the vacuolated sites, these are the coilocytes. So if the differential is verruca or verrucous carcinoma, you have to go for verruca, okay. In verrucous carcinoma you should never see coilocytes. You can see the coilocytes more obviously here, okay, these are all the coilocytic changes. So the diagnosis is condyloma acuminata. Next we are seeing the hard lesion on the glans penis. Grossly this also looks verrucous, but you can see the bulbous end even in the gross picture here and in the microscopic picture here, okay. Let us go to the high power. You can see the church spirals again, okay, villiform structure or verrucous structures moving outside, and here a lot of inflammation in the base, and it is pushing into the underlying mesenchymal tissue, but no coilocytes. See the no pale cells, no clear cells, okay. Here you can see the pushing bulbous ends with a lot of desmoplastic stroma, okay, bulbous end. And in the high power, no atypia or no mitosis. That is very, very important. Pushing bulbous end with dense desmoplastic reaction without atypia and mitosis, you have to think of verrucous carcinoma. And any verrucous carcinoma, for the diagnosis, it has to be completely excised. We want to see the junction of the epithelium and the subepithelial tissue to call. When I go to the low power, if you take a biopsy from here, this may look like condyloma acuminata without coilocytic changes, or squamous papilloma without coilocytic changes, whereas here is the diagnostic criteria for verrucous carcinoma. So complete excision is requested for verrucous carcinoma. Pushing margin, desmoplastic stroma, no atypia, no mitosis. Very, very important for the diagnosis of verrucous carcinoma. Moving to the next, this is an ulcerated lesion in the shaft of the penis, and 65-year-old. You can see big ulcer and some pink areas. Here the whole thing looks like diseased. No normal structure is seen. In the high power, extensively ulcerated, but you can see more pink areas and some blue stuff around the pink areas. And these pink areas are nothing but squamous pearl formation, and these blue areas should be the malignant squamous cell forming these keratin pearls that you can see it in the high power. You can see nicely these eosinophilic areas are the keratinized cells attempting to form epithelial pearls, and these blue cells are the infiltrating malignant cells. Keratinized pearls with epithelial pearl formation and malignant cells. You can see the surface carcinoma in situ changes. This is very, very important. Remember, in any organ, I told you whether it is primary or secondary. To differentiate primary and secondary, you have to see the field change. What do you mean by field change? Carcinoma in situ changes should be seen adjacent to the malignancy. If you see that, it is 100% primary. Sometimes the adjacent area may be ulcerated. For example, imagine this is totally ulcerated. You don't see any carcinoma in situ. That doesn't mean it is malignant. You have to be very careful in understanding these statements. And I always put this disclaimer. I take responsibility for what I am telling, but what you are understanding. My telling and your understanding may be different. For example, presence of field change, carcinoma in situ, indicates it's a primary malignancy. But absence of field change doesn't mean it is secondary. It may be ulcerated, so it is lost. So presence of field change is primary. Sorry for confusing you. That I can do better than clarifying this. So it's a well differentiated squamous cell carcinoma. Any questions so far in the penile lesions? So the main difference is HPV and non-HPV. All squamous cell carcinomas in the penis, and just for exam purpose, you have to remember in the head and neck also, and the practical purpose, all head and neck and penile and female genital tract lesions has to be HPV typed, because the prognosis is different between HPV and non-HPV. Any questions so far, ma'ams? Hello, can you hear me? Moderator?
So 1 second, so we'll just check.
Sure. Take a break. Everybody take some water.
Sir, there are some questions from the delegates.
Yes.
Please tell the difference between verruca condyloma and papilloma in penis and when to use each of them.
Okay, that's a very good question. Verruca, papilloma, and verrucous carcinoma. Let us start with verrucous carcinoma. I showed you very nicely. All are verrucous, all are papillomatous, all are church spirals. Okay. In verrucous carcinoma, there is pushing margin with extensive desmoplasia at the junction of the tumor and the stroma, and no atypia and mitosis in the pushing area. And in the superficial portion, no coilocytic change. Very, very important. No coilocytic change in verrucous carcinoma. The verruca and squamous papilloma can be used interchangeably, but when you see viral changes, when you see coilocytes, they call it more like verruca. But if you call it squamous papilloma with coilocytes, nothing wrong. Treatment wise, both are the same. Okay, is it clear? Can we go to the next question?
Yes, sir. The next question is, most of the time we reported dysplasia and consider tangentially cut section. How is it possible, and what is the thickness at maximum we encounter in a tangentially cut section?
There is no criteria for thickness. It all depends how tangentially you are putting. Okay, just go to the clinician, talk to them. If it is a verrucous lesion, they completely excised, you are doubtful that they are all tangential sections, look for coilocytes. If you see coilocytes, it is condyloma acuminatum. Don't see coilocytes, well-defined pushing margin, no invasion, desmoplastic reaction, no atypia, then look for this size. Okay, if it is completely excised, favor benign when it is small. If it is incompletely excised, call it as verrucous lesion, ask for complete excision. So clinical correlation is very essential, and if you know the history, the verrucous carcinoma came into terminology when Dr. Ackerman had 7 biopsies in a particular lesion, and every biopsy he is calling it as benign. So 7th time the clinician came and took Dr. Ackerman to see the patient, and after seeing the size of the lesion, Dr. Ackerman was telling, oh my god, is this the one I am calling benign? And that's what clinician was also telling, oh my god, that's why I called you to see the patient. It is a verrucous carcinoma. As I told you, if you biopsy superficially, you cannot differentiate. So to answer your question, there is no criteria for thickness of the tangential section. Look for viral associated changes. Go to the clinician and ask if it is whole lesion is excised or still some lesion is in the patient. In that case, ask for wider excision and look at the junction to call it as carcinoma.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, if a lesion has both basaloid cells and invasive SCC, how to draft the final diagnosis?
To call it as basaloid carcinoma, it should have more comedo-like necrosis, like DCIS, like picture. So you go with the predominant. Okay, when you see basaloid and squamous cell with a lot of squamous pearl formation, you call it, depending upon the differentiation, you call it as well differentiated, moderately differentiated, or poorly differentiated carcinoma. When you see only basaloid cells with peripheral palisading and central comedonecrosis, call it as basaloid squamous cell carcinoma. Because basaloid squamous cell carcinoma has a high risk of lymph node metastasis. That's why you have to specifically look for specific criteria. Predominantly basaloid cells, predominant means more than 50%. Small blue cells, peripheral palisading with the central comedonecrosis, basaloid squamous cell carcinoma. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. You can proceed with your next part, sir.
Thank you. One good thing in webinar, you can eat whatever you want. Unfortunately, I am under the video, but you are all not in video, so you can do whatever you want. And one bad thing also, you will miss meeting friends. You miss the nice menus you have. Usually Belgaum people, they treat us very well. They have non-vegetarians, fish and everything. So, but you can order, okay? In this corona, you try to help as many people as possible, okay? Buy things, put your money into the market, use it, don't save it, okay? And another thing, we don't know how long we are going to live. As I told you in the morning, we live, we die only once, so we have to live to our full extent. So enjoy and listen. Test days. Now we are moving to test days. WHO 2016, again primary and secondary. In the primary, germ cell tumors, mixed germ cell and sex-cut stromal tumors, sex-cut stromal tumors. Or I will start again, germ cell tumors and sex-cut stromal tumors. The third one is mixed. Fourth is miscellaneous. Fifth is tumors of collecting duct and rete testis. And sixth is hematolymphoid tumors. Germ cell tumors, first question you have to ask is, there is a major change in germ cell neoplasia in situ. Previously, we call it as intratubular germ cell neoplasia. That has been replaced by germ cell neoplasia in situ. Any germ cell tumor is associated with germ cell neoplasia in situ or unrelated to germ cell neoplasia in situ. This is a very, very important question you have to ask yourself. In the stromal cells, it can be pure like Leydig cell, Sertoli cell, granulosa cell, fibromaticoma, or it can be mixed or unclassified. When you see mixed germ cell and sex-cut stromal tumor, it is called as gonadoblastoma. And these are all the miscellaneous tumor. You can get ovarian epithelial type tumors, very rarely in testis. You can get hemangioma and juvenile xanthogranuloma also here. Tumors of collecting duct and rete, remember these are all epithelial cells, so they can give rise to adenoma and adenocarcinoma. When you say adenocarcinoma in the testis, rule out metastasis, especially from prostate. When you ruled out all the other things, the origin of adenocarcinoma in the testis is from the collecting duct or from the rete testis. In the hematolymphoid, lymphoma, myeloid sarcoma, Rosai-Dorfman disease, and plasmacytoma. In addition to that, you can get all types of lymphoma, including B cell, T cell, and NK cell lymphomas. Coming to germ cells, as I told you, are they related or are they arising from germ cell neoplasia in situ or unrelated to germ cell neoplasia in situ? When it is associated with the germ cell neoplasia in situ, is it non-invasive or invasive? When it is invasive, again, as I told you, it is now known as germ cell neoplasia in situ, GCNIS, rather than intratubular germ cell neoplasia. Or it can be a non-specialized one or specific forms of giant cell neoplasia in situ. For example, seminoma can be present as a non-invasive. Choriocarcinoma may be present as a non-invasive. Embryonal carcinoma can be present as a non-invasive. So these are all the specific forms of germ cell neoplasia in situ. When it is invasive, it can be pure or mixed. And the last category is germ cell neoplasia of unknown type. In the pure form, it can be seminoma or non-seminoma. In the non-seminoma, it can be seminoma with syncytiotrophoblasts scattered cells. In the non-seminoma, you have this many types. You all know that embryonal carcinoma, yolk sac tumor, teratoma, teratoma with the somatic tumors, and the trophoblastic tumors. It's very easy to remember. It's a germ cell. Germ cell normally develops into embryo and yolk sac. Embryo develops into adults, and embryo also has a extra embryonal placenta. Remember that. So if it develops into embryo-like structure, it is embryonal carcinoma. Develops into yolk sac-like structure, it is a yolk sac tumor. Develop into adults, it's a teratoma with the somatic or without somatic tumors. And if it develops into placenta, it is a trophoblastic tumor. So these are all the malignant components of the normal structures that can happen in the germ cells. And all these are arising from germ cell neoplasia in situ. Trophoblastic tumor itself now divided into choriocarcinoma and non-choriocarcinoma. And monophasic choriocarcinoma is included as a new criteria in addition to epithelioid trophoblastic tumors and cystic trophoblastic tumors. Okay, so this is the members of the germ cell tumor that arises from germ cell neoplasia in situ. When you come to germ cell neoplasia unrelated to GCNIS, the number one tumor is the spermatocytic tumor. Remember, we used to call spermatocytic seminoma. That spermatocytic seminoma is being renamed as spermatocytic tumor because it is not at all associated with seminoma. Mainly, it is not related with GCNIS, whereas seminoma is related with GCNIS. Then teratoma. And this teratoma and all the tumors unrelated to GCNIS arise in the prepubertal, whereas all the tumors that arise from GCNIS are pubertal or postpubertal. That's why you have to make the difference. We will see the difference in 1 minute. So teratoma, yolk sac tumor, mixed teratoma and yolk sac tumor. In the teratoma, it can be dermoid cyst, epidermoid cyst, or monodermal teratoma. And this is the table you have to remember for testicular germ cell tumors. It is divided into prepubertal and postpubertal, pediatric and adult. All adult are associated with GCNIS. Okay, whereas all pediatric are not associated with GCNIS. And the other very important thing is 12p gain. Okay, the isolated chromosome 12p isomer is very, very diagnostic of adult type of germ cell tumor. And in pediatric population, it is of more mixed teratoma and yolk sac tumor. Whereas in adult, it is predominantly in adult it is predominantly mixed type. Sorry, I'm confused myself. I will come back from the beginning. Let us go back to the previous. So all GC germ cell neoplasms should be differentiated into those arising from GCNIS and those unrelated to GCNIS. Unrelated to GCNIS are spermatocytic tumor, which is teratoma, prepubertal, mixed germ cell tumors. Okay, so the 12p gain is the main thing that differentiates adults into pediatrics, because all the adult tumors arise from malignant germ cell tumor, whereas benign is arising in the pediatric age group. So this difference is very, very important. Coming to IHC in germ cell tumors, there are certain specific markers of that cell line or pluripotent markers or somatic markers. When you see the example, you will know. All germinoma produce D240 and the pluripotent markers CD117 and the OCT4. Yolk sac tumors, the classic marker is alpha fetoprotein. The pluripotent marker is SAL4, but the somatic specific marker is glypican 3, vilin, CDX2 and TTF1. In embryonal carcinoma, it is CD30, AU13, SOX2 is a pluripotent marker. For choriocarcinoma, they are all classic. It's HCG, inhibin, cytokeratin 7 and P63. In immature teratoma, it is SAL4 and Ki67. The spermatocytic tumor has its own specific marker now, DMRT1. This is a product of proteomic studies. Okay, DMRT1 is specific for spermatocytic marker. In post chemo, the markers may be lost. That you have to remember. So no use of ISC in the post chemo testicular tumors. So this is a simplified algorithm to do for germ cell tumors of the testis. First to do for ARCT3 and 4. If it is positive, then do CD117. ARCT34 CD117 positive seminoma. ARCT34 CD30 positive embryonal carcinoma. ARCT34 negative glypican positive yolk sac tumor. ARCT34 negative GATA3 positive choriocarcinoma. ARCT34 negative DMRT1 positive spermatocytic seminoma. So by doing these 6 markers, you can differentiate the germ cells into seminoma, embryonal carcinoma, yolk sac tumor, choriocarcinoma, and spermatocytic tumor. This is the placental site trophoblastic tumor. Whenever you see hyaline pink material, fibrinous material with decidua-like cells with cyto and sensitive trophoblast, think of placental site trophoblastic tumor. When they look more epithelioid and when it is PLAP, placental alkaline phosphatase, and P63 positive, think of new entity included in the testicular tumor, that is epithelioid trophoblastic tumor. When it has lot of cystic degeneration, but the lining epithelium is more like syncytio and cytotrophoblast, you have to think of cystic trophoblastic tumor. Let us go to slides. Slide number 11. This is the compressed normal testicular parenchyma, and this is the lesion that you can see it here. Okay, so this is involving more like epididymal portion of the testis. In the low power, you can see normal epididymis, and a portion of the epididymis is replaced by some lobulated structure. Sorry for the knife marks, and some entrapped epididymal tubules are also seen here. In the high power, it is having a granulomatous pattern, and it shows multinucleated giant cells, classic giant cell, and it also showed focal necrosis in some areas. So the diagnosis is tuberculous epididymitis. Please remember, epididymis is involved first, then it involves the testis. Case number 12, again from the testis, it's a 58-year-old. There are 2 areas. These are all normal looking testicular areas. There is something going on here and something going on here. Let us go to the high power. Again, I am stressing looking at the slides and the naked eye. See here, you can see a inflammatory process and something is happening in the center. Wow, these are all the parasites. You can see them nicely. Microfilaria with a lot of granulomatous reaction around it. There is a very, very interesting question here. When people ask me, first I laughed at them. They will ask you, is this parasite live or dead? And it looked like a stupid question to me, because they removed it from the patient, they put it in formalin, they processed it, they have put it in paraffin, and they have cut it with a microtome. And now they are asking, is it live or dead? It should be dead. And I told this is dead. And the questioner asked me why. So I told the whole process, and he laughed at me. See the reaction around them. If it is a live worm, this much of inflammatory reaction won't be there. Okay, it will be only the parasite. Okay, whatever processing, cutting you are doing, this reaction may not come. That is a live parasite. When a parasite is associated with the extensive inflammatory reaction rich in eosinophils and granulomas, this is a dead parasite that released the contents of the parasite that created the inflammatory response. So please understand the question. I was a stupid, I am a stupid, I will be a stupid, but I don't want you to be a stupid. microfilaria. Even you can see the uterus and microfilarial worms, necrosis and granulomatous reaction. So granuloma with microfilaria. This we commonly see in India. If you go to the literature, there is no much on these microfilaria in the testis in Western literature. So case number 13, it's an enlarged testis. The skin is also seen here. Looks more bluish here, more bluish. It looks like some normal structures are there. So I cannot say whether it is tumor or non-neoplastic in this power. Here I can see a lot of atrophic cells, atrophic testicular tubule. 54-year-old, I don't know why this much of atrophy. And lot of inflammatory cells, lymphocytes. Okay, so to me it looks more non-neoplastic. Wow, here you see a lot of sclerosis. Can you see the onion skinning appearance or sclerosis? When you see this much of sclerosis with lymphocytes, you have to think of IgG4 disease, because they will definitely show plasma cells in the high power. So in the low power, it may be lymphocyte rich, but in the high power, it is plasma cell rich. Okay, and you see the sclerosis, onion skin or lamellar sclerosis. When you see lamellar sclerosis with increased number of plasma cells, the differential diagnosis is IG4. In addition to that, you have to think of inflammatory myofibroblastic tumor. In inflammatory myofibroblastic tumor, it will be present like a tumor, and you will see a lot of plasma cells also, and you will see keloid-like collagen there, like a solitary fibrous tumor. Whereas here, it is more like sclerosis that is arranged linearly like an onion skin pattern. And the other criteria is phlebitis. Okay, see this vessel with the phlebitis. I think I have one high power. I don't appreciate that much of phlebitis here, but you see the linear arrangement of fibrosis and the increased number of plasma cells and phlebitis. Okay, so I don't know whether it is phlebitis. It looks like more artery because of the thick wall. But please believe me, I found some phlebitis also. So that is the triad: lamellar fibrosis, lymphoplasmacytic infiltrate, and obliterative phlebitis. The diagnosis is IgG4 disease. The close differential diagnosis are inflammatory myofibroblastic tumor. But when you do CD138, IgG, and IgG4, that ratio of more than 40% will give you the diagnosis of IgG4 disease. Why this disease is important? It's a systemic disease and it will respond to steroid therapy very well. That's why you have to diagnose IgG4 disease. Whatever we call previously as Sjogren syndrome, Riedel's thyroiditis, they are IgG4 disease. Any sclerotic disease, even the sclerosing mediastinitis, retroperitoneal fibrosis, they are all IgG4 disease now. Going to the next case, cut potato appearance. Okay, 28-year-old testicular mass. You can see the tumor with the extensive necrosis. And even in this low power, it's a diagnostic. See, tumors are arranged in lobular pattern with admixed lymphocytes. In the high power, you can see two population of cells. These are all the germ cells with the prominent nucleoli, and these are all the lymphocytes. Okay, so this is a seminoma, classic seminoma, and please remember this will associated with germ cell neoplasia in situ, and it will show isochromosome 12p in the molecular. So it's a classic seminoma. This is case 15, 39-year-old, 4.8 centimeter testicular mass. This is a testicular tumor and shows cystic and solid areas, and it is having a reticular pattern in the low power. The reticular pattern is very, very important to recognize in the low power. High power, the reticular pattern will be confirmed, and they are lined by cuboidal cells and glomeruloid formation or embryo-like formation may be there, and these are classic of yolk sac tumor. And in the high power, you may see some hyaline globules. If you see the picture, you can see some hyaline globules, both intracellular and extracellular. So this is diagnostic of yolk sac tumor. Whenever you see yolk sac tumor or any germ cell tumor, look around and give more samples to see is there any mixed component. For example, if there is a 10% embryonal carcinoma in other areas, that embryonal carcinoma will dictate the prognosis. So any germ cell tumor has to be widely sampled and it has to be checked for mixed germ cell component. This is a yolk sac tumor. SAL4 positive, GATA3 positive, glypican positive, and alpha fetoprotein positive. GATA3 is more specific, and glypican is more specific than GATA3. Unfortunately, glypican is a cytoplasmic, whereas GATA3 is nuclear. I think this movie might have come in Canada also, Tasavadara, where you can see Kamala Hassan in 10 forms. Yolk sac tumor is a Kamala Hassan in testes because it's more than Kamala Hassan because it can show 11 patterns. Okay, so microcystic, macrocystic, polyvesicular, myxomatous, like 11 patterns it can show. So I used to tell my students, any testicular tumor, if you don't know what you are thinking about, keep the working diagnosis as yolk sac tumor. 70% you will be right because yolk sac tumor is the one that has polymorphic presentation. Okay, there are 11 types of yolk sac tumor you have to remember. Moving to case number 16, testicular mass, very hemorrhagic. Okay, and even in the slow power, very hemorrhagic. Whenever this hemorrhagic is there, think of embryonal carcinoma and choriocarcinoma. These are all the two differential diagnoses. Never think of yolk sac tumor or seminoma with this much of hemorrhage. And this fits into any organ. Hemorrhagic tumor, number 1, choriocarcinoma in the differential diagnosis. Extensive hemorrhage, you can start seeing the giant cells, okay, and mononuclear cytotrophoblasts. They will have prominent nucleoli and scattered syncytiotrophoblasts. Okay, so the diagnosis is choriocarcinoma. Sometimes it will be extensive hemorrhage, 90%. In the initial sections, you may not see any tumor. In those cases, go to the periphery of the tumor. If you see the gross picture, some viable tumor may be there. If you give it more from these areas, you will see only hemorrhage. Give a section from the junction and in the periphery, you may get more viable areas. So hemorrhagic tumor, choriocarcinoma. And choriocarcinoma may regress by itself. There are some tumors that regress by themselves. Choriocarcinoma is number 1, renal cell carcinoma number 2, melanoma number 3, and any germ cell may regress. That's why they may present only as a scar in the primary origin, and it may be present with metastasis. Any germ cell tumor in the abdomen or in the thorax, check the gonads, okay, especially the testes. If there is any scar tissue seen radiologically, then it is a regressed germ cell tumor. Let us go to the next. This is having some hemorrhagic pattern, some solid areas, some cystic areas. Whenever you see hemorrhage, solid and cystic areas, think of mixed germ cell tumor. You cannot be thinking of teratoma here because there is no cystic component. Okay, no tooth, no nail. Okay, so these are all hemorrhagic areas. And by the way, I used to ask my PGs, what are the criteria for teratoma? Then they used to say, we have to see skin, very good. You have to see nail, very good. You have to see tooth, very, very good. So will you call when you see all these things teratoma? The PGs will say yes. Then I will ask them, do you have nail? Yes. Do you have skin? Yes. Do you have hair? Yes. So can I call you teratoma? Yes. We are all teratomas. Whether we are mature or immature, that depends how you behave. Coming back to pathology, whenever you see this heterogeneous pattern, think of mixed germ cell tumors. So here, classic reticular pattern, okay, yolk sac tumor. Whereas here, more dark blue cells, okay, and they are arranged in sheets. So embryonal carcinoma, you have to think. In low power itself, you can see how think of yolk sac tumor and embryonal carcinoma. And whenever you see components, you have to give the percentage. As I told you, even if it is 2% of high grade tumor, that high grade tumor will dictate the prognosis. And in hemorrhagic areas, you have to look for choriocarcinomatous component. So yolk sac component, embryonal carcinoma component. You can see attempted gland formation with high-grade malignant tumors, and scattered syncytial trophoblasts, high-grade malignant tumors. So the diagnosis is mixed germ cell tumor. Embryonal carcinoma 60%, yolk sac tumor 20%, and choriocarcinoma 20%. Okay, so the prognosis will depend upon embryonal carcinoma. Even though other components are there, embryonal carcinoma is the worst component and it is the predominant. So it is mandatory to give the percentage of components in mixed germ cell tumor. Case number 18, testicular parenchyma, well circumscribed tumor. Even in this low power, you can see this is the testicular parenchyma, well circumscribed tumor, solid, looks more pink. See the normal testis and the tumor, well circumscribed. When you see the tumor, there are abundant pink cytoplasm with the centrally placed nuclei. Large cells with abundant pink cytoplasm. Whenever you see this type of cells, you have to think of Leydig cell tumor. Okay, so this is a classic Leydig cell tumor. Going to question number, case number 19, again testicular tumor, 4 centimeter. You can see dark blue cells here. Some pink areas, sorry for the knife marks, pink areas, and you can see the nests of tumor cells. This is blue and pink. Again here you can see the blue areas and the pink areas. In ovary, if you see, you have to think of Brenner tumor and Sertoli cell tumor. Okay, and in the testes we won't get that much of Brenner tumor. Happen very rarely, but very rare. So this is a more like a two types of cells are there. Sclerosing process in the background with the nests of cells in the blue cells in the in between the sclerosing cells process. And these cells, they are trying to form glands, but predominantly arranged in clusters and fascicles. And whenever you see these types of cells, you have to think of Sertoli cell tumor. And there is previously we used to call sclerosing Sertoli cell tumor. They removed the terminology sclerosing now. It is called as Sertoli cell tumor in the testis. That's the diagnosis. And the last case, again cut potato appearance. And whenever you see cut potato appearance, think of lymphoid neoplasm or neoplasm associated with the lymphoid cells. For example, medullary carcinoma thyroid, medullary carcinoma breast, seminoma, lymphoma. Any lymphoid cells will give a cut potato appearance. And here you can see dark blue cells. Dark blue cells, high power dark blue cells with a starry sky pattern. Again, starry sky pattern, dark blue cells. And starry sky pattern, even though they are favor a diagnosis of Burkitt's lymphoma, it is not diagnostic. Even diffuse large B cell lymphoma or any high grade lymphoma will have the starry sky pattern, and these stars are nothing but macrophages. And whenever there is a highly proliferating tumor, there will be a high rate of death of the tumor, and these macrophages will come to eat up and clean up those areas. So any high grade tumor can show starry sky pattern, even though we favor Burkitt's. So classic starry sky pattern with these are all the macrophages, and these are all the high grade malignant cells. Here by ISC, these are positive for CD45, CD20, and negative for CD10, and the Ki67 index is 90%, Weber is negative. So we gave a diagnosis of diffuse large B cell lymphoma after ruling out the diagnosis of Burkitt's lymphoma. So the take home message in prostate, try to remember how to differentiate benign and malignant. Malignant, no lobular growth pattern, uniform size shape glands, large nucleoli with blue mucin and no basal cells. In the penile lesion, HPV related precursor lesions and non-HPV related precursor lesions. In the testis, pediatric or prepubertal tumors and postpubertal tumors. These are all the main key points you have to remember. These are my references. This is from European Urology Journal that gives 2016 WHO classification of penile and testicular tumors. This one gives about bladder and prostate. And this is the one which I was lucky to get it yesterday from the American Journal of Surgical Pathology about 2019 ISUP consensus. So I'm so happy that we are remaining very current by covering even the journals released yesterday. So I want to finish it with be you and believe yourself.